Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is a little update on how the Ensete bananas are progressing in the garage. So it's been a bit of an experiment this year because last year I dug up one of these Ensete bananas and it was about this kind of size when I dug it up from the ground, and I tried dry storing it where I literally completely drained it and I took all the soil off of it and basically kept it in a cool but dry place. Unfortunately, it did eventually kind of rot away. It just didn't do very well at all. These two I actually had at the same time, and but these were a fraction of the size. They were kind of newly bought plants, probably about a foot tall, including the leaves on there, and they did actually still have their leaves on. And I overwintered those in two pots. I just kept them a little bit drier, um, but they were still kind of potted and they still had their leaves. They were kept in the greenhouse, so it never went below freezing in the greenhouse. And these are the ones that survived. So these then got potted into these quite big pots actually, and I put loads of really decent soil in them, and they were sunk kind of half in the ground but still in the pot, and they did really well last year. I had massive leaves on them, and the roots were even coming out the bottom of the pot into the ground, so they were getting extra feed that way. So I thought rather than dig those up and completely dry store them like I did last year, I thought I'd leave them in the pots that they were in the summer. But I tilted them on their side, drained all the water out between the leaves on there. So effectively turned them upside down, drained out as much as possible. And I've done that a few times actually over the winter time. And we're now heading towards the end of February. And they definitely have done a lot better than the last year's one. There's not really, there's tiny little bit at the end, a little bit of rot on them, but the leaves are all really firm. The trunk's really firm as well. And what's really good is you can see, I'll just focus, we've got the new leaf emerging. So even now they're just starting to grow. This one as well, it's kind of like, it's nice and firm, which is good. You can kind of see down there. Yeah. So they are going to be, with a bit of heat and a bit of light and everything, these are slowly going to start to spring to life. As it does do that, and as the weather improves outside, I'll probably, on sort of hot, dry days, I will put them outside so they get plenty of light, and that will sort of start them kind of growing. And I will slowly introduce water to the pots. At the moment, you can see it is absolutely bone dry on there. So, but yeah, really pleased with how these are looking at the moment, and I hope they uh, survive. We've got probably another few more months of getting them through, but they look like they've got plenty of kind of energy to them, and I'd imagine these will be absolutely massive this year. So that's very exciting. So that's the Ensete bananas. So let's go and have a look at the other bananas. So underneath this wrapping is the Musa sycamensis. So it's got, I think it's like a red fleck type banana. We've got a bent kind of leaf bit, which has been, these bits have been frosted at the top. But ultimately, can't really totally unwrap them. Really hard, but we've still got it. It's really green and it is really firm. it's not flopping over or anything. So that's a really, really good sign that that pseudostem has not been frosted off and rotted off. So I've managed to keep the height of this one, which is probably the stem, I would say, is 7 foot on that one. It's a single stem, and I think it's got a few like little suckers coming off of the bottom of it. So yeah, really impressed with those, because this is the first time they've been planted out in the ground. It's the first winter that they've gone through, because they were overwintered in the greenhouse last year. So how are the Musabaju doing? So over here, you can see really well, we've got all the bits that were frosted off in the -5, but we've got a new leaf emerging from the centre. And if we look further down, these are kind of semi-wrapped. You can see on here, we've got the new leaves are starting already on all of them on there. So we've got really good stems that have not rotted, nice and solid. So this technique's worked really well for me. So I've put this loft insulation, wrap that round the base of it, followed by the weed membrane, which is kind of semi-breathable. And this one's slightly, this is a 6 foot stem on this one. Probably see if I zoom out there. It makes the Musa sycamensis look smaller, but it's actually about a foot taller. So yeah, I've wrapped them in this weed membrane and they are doing really well. We have another group here, which is the same technique. This one's a much bigger group. It's probably about 8 foot tall, and there's lots of stems in here. And if I look inside here, you can see the multi-stems and the insulation, but we've still got lots of green, really firm group. And literally, even with -5, this is the result. So the main stems are thoroughly wrapped, so they were always going to survive. And the top bit has been exposed to -5 temperatures. And you can see even this bit is firm on there, and these are really firm as well. I've literally left the leaves to help protect it a little bit. So rather than chop all the leaves off and just leave the stems, I thought I'd just collapse them onto the top of the group, because that's extra insulation for it. And I knew I was going to lose the leaves anyway, so that's fine. But yeah, I'd say that has helped this group not get too frosted. And this group here, which is looking quite messy at the moment, this has been my experiment, because this was my biggest group, and this again has been exposed to -5. It's only very loosely wrapped with insulation. So I've got this, again, the thick insulation at the bottom. If I just lift that up. But yeah, try to do a bit of a comparison. The size of that stem is massive. So I thought, well, it's going to survive quite well. And you can see even up here how big that stem is. I would say this one is at least 10 foot tall, this main stem. So again, I've left the leaves to kind of get all frosted and collapse on themselves. And probably, well, you can see from the insulation on this one that effectively only half of it has been wrapped. And I was thinking, well, if -5, it completely collapses those top stems, then yeah, I've lost half the height. But this is a really vigorous group. And it's in a corner of the garden, which is a little bit protected by hedges and the chicken coop. And you can see even here on one of the smaller ones, we've got green growth on there. Try and look into this group from here. So you see the back of that pseudo stem. We've got lots of green, and no signs of the pseudo stems collapsing, which is really cool because it means these are gonna be even bigger this year. So really excited about that. They probably put on, I reckon, another metre of growth on stem wise. It'd be absolutely enormous. So yeah, it's been a really good experiment compared to sort of fully wrapping some of the others. I would say if you can get them to a decent size and then loosely wrap them, depending on your where you are, and I think some people even don't wrap them at all. And you know, kind of in a winter with less kind of frosts around or not as deep frosts, they can kind of push through. So I hope you've enjoyed the little update of the all of the banana plants and just showing, you know, how they were wrapped and what survived so far. But yeah, really positive with those. Looking forward to seeing those massive leaves emerge. Well, read it in the next few months, I suppose. So hope you've enjoyed the video, and please don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you on the next video.